Have you ever asked yourself why you're really doing the things you do? Not just the surface-level answers, but the deeper why that drives everything. Imagine you wake up, get dressed, and head to work. At first glance, it seems simple. You need to get to your job. But if someone presses you with questions, the story grows more complicated. Why go to work? Because you need money. Why do you need money? To survive, to care for your family, to live properly. And why live properly? That's where most people stop. Unsure, uncomfortable, realizing that beneath all our actions lies a deeper chain of purpose we rarely examine. The Stoics believed that unless you understand that chain, you're like a traveler who walks endlessly without knowing where the road leads. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Think about that. Most of our lives are spent chasing goals we didn't set with full awareness, and the stress we feel comes from clinging to them without questioning. You study for a degree, not only for a career, but because you hope that career will make life meaningful. But what if it doesn't? What if disappointment comes? Seneca warned that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. Wasting life doesn't always mean laziness. It can also mean living on autopilot, chasing goals you never examined. And this is where Stoicism steps in, not as a cold philosophy of denial, but as a brutally honest reminder that clarity about purpose is freedom. To live without asking why is to be pulled in every direction by desires, fears, and opinions of others. Epictetus said it clearly. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's not just advice. It's a command to wake up and align every small action with a higher aim. So when you feel anxiety about your car breaking down, or when your plans fall apart, the Stoics would tell you it's not the event that hurts you, but the collapse of your imagined narrative. The fear isn't about the car, it's about the chain of what-ifs that follow. What if I can't get to work? What if I lose my job? What if I fail at life? Suddenly, the present moment is hijacked by a storm of imagined futures. And yet, Marcus Aurelius faced entire empires collapsing, betrayals, plagues and wars, and still found calm. Why? Because he understood that the only path that matters is the one aligned with reason and virtue. Everything else is noise, and if you can learn to strip away the noise to return to the fundamental why, you'll discover something liberating, that you don't need to control the future to live well. You only need to live with purpose now. Now imagine this. You're driving to work. Everything feels ordinary. The day seems predictable, and life feels like it's on rails. The car is moving, the road is clear, and your mind is already projecting into the future. You'll get to work, finish your tasks, maybe talk to your boss, grab lunch, and so on. The world feels simple, because everything is cooperating with your plan. But then, suddenly, the car makes a strange noise, sputters, and breaks down on the side of the road. In an instant, your sense of calm evaporates. Frustration, panic, and anxiety flood in, and your mind races with possibilities. Will you be late for work? Will your boss be furious? Could this mistake put your job at risk? Maybe you even start blaming yourself. Why didn't I take better care of this car? Why didn't I save more money for emergencies? Maybe I should have walked. Maybe I should have chosen differently. And within seconds, what began as a minor inconvenience transforms into a cascade of imagined disasters. This spiral is familiar to all of us, and the Stoics would call this a collapse of your narrative. The smooth path toward your goal fractured, and now you face a multiplicity of uncertain futures. But here is where Stoicism becomes not just philosophy, but a lifeline. Epictetus, a slave who rose to become one of history's greatest teachers, taught that events themselves are neutral. It is our judgments about them that create suffering. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The car breaking down is not inherently good or bad. It simply is. The storm begins in your mind the moment you project into the future. What if I lose my job? What if this ruins my reputation? What if I can't handle this? Marcus Aurelius faced far worse than a broken vehicle. He dealt with plagues, betrayals, and wars that threatened the empire itself, yet he reminded himself, Dieten, Lishir. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Anxiety is nothing more than your mind multiplying pathways into chaos. The Stoic move is to pause and return to the present moment, asking, what is within my control right now? Maybe it's calling a mechanic. Maybe it's taking a bus or finding another way forward. Maybe it's simply accepting that today will unfold differently than planned. By narrowing your focus back to what is within your sphere of influence, you transform panic into clarity. This is why Stoics train daily for adversity. Seneca, a wealthy statesman, deliberately practiced poverty, wearing rough clothes, eating coarse bread, and asking himself, is this what I feared? He wanted to strip fear of its power by confronting it directly. His lesson was timeless. Most of our suffering comes not from reality, but from imagination. We rehearse disasters that never arrive. We torture ourselves with what-ifs that remain shadows. And yet, when the real difficulty does arrive, we often find we can endure more than we thought. The Stoic path is not about denial of pain, it's about refusing to be enslaved by it. Pain is part of being human, but suffering, the endless replaying of failure in our minds, is optional. Think of your own life. How often have you tormented yourself with regret, guilt, or fear that existed only in thought? That's the prison the Stoics want us to escape. By drawing a sharp line between what is up to us, our judgments, our choices, our actions, and what is not, fortune, circumstance, the behavior of others, we reclaim peace in the midst of storms. Modern life is full of broken cars, sometimes literal, sometimes symbolic. Projects collapse, relationships end, careers stall, health declines. The Stoic is not someone who avoids these realities, but someone who remains unshaken within them. Calm does not come from controlling the world, but from mastering the self. Think about the last time you felt wronged by someone. Maybe a friend betrayed your trust, a colleague spoke behind your back, or even a stranger cut you off in traffic. In those moments, anger rises like fire, and the first instinct is to lash out, to retaliate, or at the very least, to dwell on the injustice for hours, sometimes days. Your mind replays the scene, invents speeches you wish you had said, and fuels the narrative that you have been victimized. But the Stoics ask us, what do you gain by handing your peace of mind to the actions of another? Epictetus reminds us that when someone insults you, it is not their words that wound you, but your interpretation of them. You could choose to see the insult as noise, as irrelevant, as nothing more than breath leaving their lips. Marcus Aurelius, who endured endless political slander as emperor, wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This radical stance might sound impossible in a world where reputation, status, and respect seem everything. But Stoicism turns the mirror back on us. If another's action can disturb your soul, who truly holds power over you? Seneca gives us a practical image. Anger is like grasping a hot coal to throw at someone else. It burns you before it ever leaves your hand. And yet, how often do we burn ourselves daily? We let our minds become prisons built by resentment, reliving old injuries that the offenders have long forgotten. Modern life makes this worse. Social media amplifies slights, comments, and criticisms, giving them a stage in our heads. But here is where the Stoic way shines, as both timeless and modern. They teach us to master perception, to look at events without the added drama. Imagine someone cuts you off on the road. You could interpret it as an attack on your dignity, or you could simply see it as a driver in a rush. Hitch interpretation leaves you free. The Stoics are not saying never feel or become a robot. They are saying, train your mind to step between stimulus and response, and in that space, reclaim control. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that humans act out of ignorance, out of desires and fears, just as you do. When someone wronged him, he wrote, "They act out of what they think is good for them. You cannot expect figs not to produce their juice. Why expect people not to act according to their nature?" This isn't cynicism, it's compassion. If you see others as flawed, fragile beings driven by their own battles, your anger begins to dissolve. The modern world is desperate for this kind of perspective. How many relationships crumble not because of the actual harm, but because neither side learned to pause, to examine their judgments, to respond with wisdom rather than impulse. Stoicism equips us to stop being slaves to every emotional trigger, to develop a calm that feels almost superhuman in today's reactive culture. And the benefits go beyond personal peace. They ripple outward. Imagine if you became that person in your circle who doesn't get rattled, who can listen without judgment, who can face conflict with composure. People are drawn to that presence because it is so rare. This is why Stoicism has survived for over 2,000 years, not because it promises an escape from hardship, but because it offers a way to turn hardship into strength. Life will test you through betrayal, insult, and injustice. The Stoics whisper across time, "You cannot control others. You can only control yourself, and that is enough." When you master this, the chains of anger and resentment fall away, and you begin to live not as a victim of circumstance, but as the author of your own peace. At the end of all this, the true question is simple. What kind of life do you want to live? Because philosophy, if it stays on the page, is just words. The Stoics didn't write to impress. They wrote to transform. Marcus Aurelius wasn't journaling in his tent to produce a bestseller for future generations. He was writing to survive his own doubts, fears, and burdens. Seneca didn't craft his letters to Lucilius for style. He wrote them to steady a friend drowning in the storms of ambition and anxiety. Epictetus didn't speak to entertain crowds. He was teaching men who were once slaves, soldiers, and wanderers how to rise above chains that were both physical and mental. Their words survive because they point to the one battle that never changes, the battle for the human mind. And that battle is yours today. Whether you are overwhelmed by work, trapped in comparison, or haunted by mistakes, the battlefield is always within, and Stoicism is the map. So how do you bring this philosophy into your daily life, beyond inspiration? Start small, because the Stoics lived in practices, not theories. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, take 2 minutes in silence and ask yourself Marcus's question. Will today be wasted on trivial things, or will I rise to what is required? That single pause can redirect an entire day. At night, follow Seneca's practice. Review your actions without judgment, as if you were both lawyer and judge of your own soul. Did you act from anger? Did you waste energy on what was beyond your control? Reflection turns mistakes into teachers, and when frustration strikes during the day, when someone insults you, when plans collapse, practice Epictetus's discipline. Stop, breathe, and remind yourself, this event is outside me. The only power I have is how I respond. These aren't abstract ideas. They are practical shields and weapons for the mind, forged in times far harsher than ours. Think of the long game, because Stoicism is not about quick fixes, but about building character that endures. Marcus Aurelius faced plagues, invasions, and betrayal, yet he built an inner fortress so strong that even emperorship couldn't corrupt it. Seneca was ordered to take his own life by a tyrant, yet he met death with calm dignity. Epictetus began life as a slave, beaten and owned, yet he became a free man in spirit before ever being free in body. If they could find strength in circumstances we can hardly imagine, what excuse do we have when we falter at minor inconveniences? The point is not to diminish your struggles, but to remind you, You have more strength within you than you think, and Stoicism exists to draw it out. And so here is the challenge. Don't just nod along to these ideas. Live them. Today, decide that you will no longer hand your peace over to strangers. No longer waste energy on what is outside your control. No longer delay the life you could be living. Start with one principle. Focus only on what depends on you. Guard that fiercely. Because the moment you do, you step into freedom. The kind of freedom no external power can touch. That is why Stoicism has endured. It gives ordinary people the tools to live extraordinary lives. Not by promising ease, but by forging resilience, clarity, and calm. You cannot control the storms of life, but you can always control the captain at the helm. And when you do, you discover what Marcus, Seneca, and Epictetus knew all along. The good life is not given to you, it is built one choice at a time.